Hey, what's up guys? So today I'm going to be showing you how to do some wheel spacers on your car. So let's get to it. So I'm going to be doing some wheel spacers on my 99 Jeep Cherokee. It's a pretty simple and easy install. So let's get the Jeep in the garage and we'll get to it. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is jack up the Jeep and then we'll take the tire off. Before you get your car off the ground, you'll want to loosen the lug nuts because it'll be really hard if you try to do it with the tire off the ground. Alright, now we're going to lift it up off the ground and get the tire off. Alright, so now you're going to take the wheel spacer and it comes with these nuts. These are the nuts that are going to go on these threads right here. So you'll take them off. And then your regular lug nuts are going to go on the threads on the spacer. Alright, for these threads I'm going to go ahead and use some high strength thread locker. It's the red kind. You really don't want these coming off while you're driving. That would not be good. So we're going to put this on. I'm going to add a little bit of thread locker inside the nut and then we're going to tighten it on there. Don't use too much or you'll never get these off again. You'll probably need a socket to get these on because they're a little bit hard. For these ones, a 19mm socket fits just perfectly in there. You don't really have a lot of clearance, but it'll work. At first you'll just want to hand tighten it on there. So now that they're all tightened, you're going to want to tighten each of them down to 30 foot-pounds first before tightening them all the way to the manufacturer's spec. So as you can see, the caliper's just spinning while I'm trying to tighten it. So what you could do is take a screwdriver, stick it in the slots of the caliper, that way it just holds it still. You hear the click, that means that it's tightened to the 30 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go through and do that to the other 5. You're going to want to do it in a crisscross pattern, which is what you do with all lug nuts. And the manufacturer's spec for this car is 80 to 110, so I'm going to go probably 100 just to be safe. Alright, now I'm going to go back through and torque them all in the crisscross pattern to 100 pounds. This is a very important step. If you don't tighten them to the right torque specs, you could risk this falling off or your tire falling off or ripping out one of these bolts. So make sure you tighten both of these, both of the inner bolts and the outer bolts to 100 foot-pounds of torque on a Jeep or whatever your manufacturer's torque specs are. That way you don't lose a wheel. Now we got all the bolts on the spacer on. We're gonna put the wheel on and we're done. Good practice to do while doing this also is after driving for a couple hundred miles is to take the wheel back off and re-torque them. Since I put the thread locker, that shouldn't be as much of a problem, but probably still gonna check it just in case. Like I said, you don't want to lose a wheel. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but these are 2-inch spacers. This is a pretty big spacer. There's a lot of conflicting info on whether or not having such a big spacer will affect your wheel bearings. It makes sense that it would, just because the force is put out 2 more inches and puts pressure on the bearing in ways that it didn't before. So it's definitely a possibility that when doing this you could be messing up your wheel bearings. I'll report back to you guys after driving this around for a while to see if it actually does. The reason I put these on is because I was having rubbing issues because of my wider tires that I put on. So this should eliminate the rubbing issues on my control arm now. A lot of people use spacers for just fitment as well. Since these are so much bigger, they have the threads on them. If it's a smaller spacer, it's just going to slip onto the threads you already have and then your tire's going to slip over that. When using those, you want to make sure that you have enough thread. You have the bolt threaded on enough because sometimes there won't be enough threads after putting a spacer and it becomes pretty unsafe. So If you do have a spacer and the threads aren't long enough, you could always get longer studs and that'll work, but this is how you do ones that have studs on them. So now that I got these lug nuts semi-tightened, I'm going to drop the car onto the ground and tighten them all the way, and then I'll show you the difference between the tire with the spacer on it and the one without. Alright guys, so that's how you install some wheel spacers on a car. I'm going to show you what it looks like from one side to the other because I haven't done the other side yet. So this is what it looks like after the wheel spacer. As you can see, there's a pretty good amount of poke. Those are 2-inch spacers. So this is with the wheel spacer, and this is without. So as you can see, they made a pretty big difference. Now I'm gonna get the other 4 on and then we'll take it for a test drive. Again, make sure all your lug nuts are tight. You don't want your wheel falling off. Make sure you torque them down all to spec. Use some thread locker on the spacer itself, that way it doesn't fall off the hub and you have a tire rolling down the freeway. I'm going to do a quick time lapse of the rest of it. So I ran into a bit of an issue with the back ones like I was talking about earlier. My studs aren't long enough because I have drum brakes on the backs of my Jeep, so the studs on the back are a little bit shorter and there's not enough threads on the bolt and I just don't feel comfortable running it like that. It doesn't seem very safe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order some new studs, some little bit longer studs, and then we're going to throw those on and then we could throw the spacers on the back. But the beginning of this guide is a good example of how to put them on. It's the same exact on the back as it is on the front. I could do a video showing you how to do the studs once I get them in, but if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll be putting out a lot more content and we'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.